Welcome to the world beyond imagination. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And enjoy the journey. Human solves alien unsolvable script. By rotating it, the Hall of Silent Truths was the greatest library in the Galactic Concord, a monument to the knowledge of 1,000 species, and today, it was a tomb. Archivist Valen, a being of shimmering light and gentle gravity, hovered before the central relic, the monument of the first, its surface a storm of impossible symbols. For 10 centuries, the greatest minds had tried to read it, and for 10 centuries, they had failed. Valen's light dimmed to a mournful glow. The final analysis is complete. His voice chimed across the silent chamber. A sound of pure defeat. The script is not a language, it is noise. It is the universe laughing at our pride. The monument is not a message, it is a mirror, showing us our limits. We must accept this. No one can ever read this. In the shadow of a data column, a young human linguist named Kira stood still. She was not a great mind by galactic standards. Her species was new, their history short and bloody. She was there only to observe, to learn. But as she listened to Valen's elegy, her eyes were not on the archivist's brilliant form. They were fixed on the monument's base, where the storm of symbols met the flawless floor. Something was wrong. There, a subtle, almost invisible line, a discontinuity. Her heart, a simple muscle pump in her chest, began to beat faster. The Galactic saw with energy senses. With quantum field analyzers, they saw the symbols as pure data. Kira saw them as marks, as carvings made by a hand or a tool. And you do not carve without leaving a trace, without a starting point. She took a step forward. The sound of her boot on the polished floor was a shocking intrusion in the quiet. Most learned archivist. Her voice was soft, but it carried every frequency of light in the room, focused on her. A small bipedal creature in a dark blue uniform. A question, if I may, Valen pulsed. A faint irritation. Speak, child of Earth. Before we seal this chamber forever, you have scanned the monument's atomic structure, its magnetic fields, its thermal history, Kira said, her eyes still locked on that faint line. But have you ever measured the depth of the glyphs? From top to bottom, have you mapped the tool strokes? A ripple of confusion passed through the assembled scholars. A Tolgarian historian, whose body was a mound of crystalline flesh, vibrated. The content is in the symbol shape, not in the insignificant topography of its inscription. This is basic. Insignificant. Kira repeated quietly, then she walked. She walked right past Valen, right up to the sacred, untouched artifact that no one was permitted to approach. A gasp, like a solar wind, filled the hall. She ignored it. She knelt. She did not scan. She looked with her limited biological eyes. Kira of Earth, step back. Valen's chime was sharp, commanding. Look, she whispered. Then she said it louder, her voice cracking with a certainty she did not fully feel. Look, the symbols at the top. Here, they are shallow, faint. The ones at the bottom, they are deep, gouged. You've been reading. If from top to bottom, assuming the story started at the highest point. She stood up, her hand hovering just over the cold surface. What if the story started at the bottom? What if the carver began here, with strong, sure strokes, and grew weaker, or more hurried, as they moved up? She turned to face them, her face pale in the blue glow of the library's countless screens. What if you are not looking at the first page, you are looking at the last? What if, for 1,000 years, you have been reading this masterpiece backwards? The silence was absolute, total. Valen floated closer, his light probing the area she indicated. The data cascaded into his perception. It was true. The microabrasion patterns, the molecular compaction, it all pointed upwards. The narrative flow was inverted. Then, Valen chimed, the thought forming. Slowly, terribly. The first symbol, the true first symbol, is at the very bottom. The one we deemed a meaningless smear. Kira shook her head, a human gesture of negation. No, not the bottom as it stands. She took a deep, shaking breath. This was the moment. This was blasphemy or revelation. If the story flows from bottom to top, then the monument itself is oriented wrong. She placed her palms flat against the monument of the first. Against the rules, against all protocol. The hall erupted in pulses of alarm. Valen moved to stop her, but he was too late. He was too captivated. Kira found the grooves her eyes had seen. The hidden seams at the base. She braced her legs. She pushed, not with galactic strength, but with human determination, with the stubborn will of a species that moved stones to build pyramids, that climbed mountains just to see what was on the other side. For a moment, nothing, then with a sound that had not been heard in a billion years, a deep granite grind, the entire monument, 30 feet of perfect, enigmatic stone, began to turn. It rotated on a hidden axis, a slow monumental quarter turn. The room trembled, lights flickered, and then it settled. The storm of symbols was gone. In its place, on the new face now presented to the galaxy, was a single simple image. Carved with such profound skill it seemed to breathe. It was a star, a single star, with 9 simple circles around it. On the third circle, a tiny, beautiful spike. Like a mountain, and below it, a sequence of marks, not a complex code, but tallies, like a prisoner counting days on a wall. But these tallies, they numbered in the millions. And beneath the tallies, one final clear set of glyphs. The Galactic translation matrices word. They had parsed this pattern before. It was the first pattern every species tried. It was dismissed as a coincidence, a random shape, but now, oriented correctly in its proper place as the signature. The matrices recalibrated, and for the first time they translated. Valen read it, his light flickering with the words. It says, I watched our sun grow cold. I watched the others sleep, and then sleep forever. I was the last. I made this to last longer than my bones. Is anyone out there? The answer, if it comes, will be a greater monument than this. I will not see it, but know I hoped. Signed, the caretaker. The hall was not silent now. It was filled with a soft collective hum of awe of sorrow. The monument was not a puzzle. It was a diary entry. It was a final, desperate scream into the dark from a being who died alone, hoping its loneliness would mean something. The Galactics had searched for complexity, for grand cosmic truths. They had missed the simple, devastating truth of loneliness. Valen floated to Kira, his light gentle, almost warm. How did you see what we could not, with all our sight? Kira looked at the carving of the lonely star, her eyes bright with unshed tears. For she understood loneliness, every human did. You searched for an answer to a grand question, she said, her voice thick. I looked for the hand that carved it. You saw a message to be decoded. I saw a person trying to be heard. You held the book upside down because you were looking for the author's credentials on the cover. I just turned it right side up to hear their story. She reached out and touched the carved star, a gesture of connection across a billion years. The script was never unsolvable. It was just waiting for someone to listen. Not with a scanner, but with a heart. Valen regarded the human, this child of a young, violent, brilliant species. They did not have the gift of gravity control or light manipulation. They had a different gift. A terrifying, beautiful gift. They saw the universe not as a problem to be solved, but as a story to be heard, and in that moment, the Archivist of the Galactic Concord knew the humans were not primitive. They were the most advanced listeners in the galaxy, and their story was only just beginning. He turned his light to the entire assembly. His chime now clear and strong. Seal the chamber, yes, but not in failure. Seal it in remembrance. And open a new file. Label it, the caretaker's hope. and cross-reference it with all future translations. From this day forward, we do not just look for data, we listen for the voice in the stone. And in the pale blue light of 1,000 screens, Kira of Earth stood, her hand on a billion-year-old confession. And finally, someone was home.